In 1978, deep in the jungle of Guyana, South America, over 900 people died after drinking poison. Some didn't scream. Many lined up. Parents gave it to their children. Elderly people whispered prayers. They believed they were dying for a cause, because a man named Jim Jones told them to. He was the leader of a group called the People's Temple. What started as a church ended in the largest mass suicide in modern history. Jones had been grooming his followers for years, convincing them the outside world was evil, that they were chosen, and that dying together was the only way to stay free. This is what dark psychology looks like when it's taken to its endgame. But this video isn't just about Jonestown. It's about a manipulative ex, or former mentor. That healer you saw on Instagram who says, "You're different, you're special, you just need to trust me." The same psychological tactics are being used today, although more subtly, emotionally, financially, even spiritually. You might argue that cults are far few and between, but it's not just cults. Narcissists, especially covert ones, use many of the same tactics. The difference is, they don't need 100 followers, just one. If you've ever felt trapped in a relationship that started like a fairy tale and ended in emotional chaos, you might have been dealing with a narcissist using the exact same playbook. Whether it's a cult or a relationship, it always starts the same way, with overwhelming praise. "You're not like other people. You've been called. I knew the moment I saw you. You were meant for this." That kind of language feels intoxicating, especially if you're craving purpose or connection. The term love bombing was first used by members of the Unification Church in the 1970s, better known as the Moonies. Psychologists later adopted the term to describe what it really was: manipulation disguised as affection. This is how Charles Manson recruited followers in the 1960s. Manson gathered young, mostly middle-class people in California, those who felt lost, rejected, or restless. He gave them drugs, music, affection, a sense of family, and slowly, he became their god. Within 2 years, he had them committing brutal murders because they believed it would start a revolution. Love bombing isn't affection, it's emotional bait. And in 2025, it doesn't come from a man in a robe with a guitar on a commune. It comes from someone you just met on a dating app, or a life coach with 200,000 followers on TikTok. Or the new friend who tells you, "I don't usually connect with people this fast, but with you, I just feel something." It looks like constant texting in the first 48 hours, oversharing personal trauma before trust is earned, calling you soulmate or divine counterpart on day 3, gifting you a free breakthrough session just to share energy, saying you're exactly what I've been waiting for before they even know your middle name. And the scariest part? It feels amazing because you think, finally, someone sees me, someone gets me. But that's the trap, because the goal isn't to connect, it's to flood your nervous system, to trigger your dopamine and oxytocin, so that you bond before your brain has a chance to think critically. And then, they start to pull back. You start to chase. They breadcrumb you just enough to keep the high going. That's not love. That's a chemical leash. And whether it's a cult leader in the 60s or a narcissist in your life in 2025, the playbook hasn't changed. Only the font and the filter. Once you feel connected, they start cutting you off from anything or anyone that could pull you away. Jim Jones told his followers that the US government wanted to destroy them. He moved them to a remote compound in the jungle called Jonestown. No phones, no newspapers, no escape. Only jungle, heat, loudspeakers playing his sermons, and fear of what would happen if you tried to leave. This step is textbook control. In cults, it's physical isolation. In narcissistic abuse, it's emotional. You hear things like, your friends don't support your growth. Your family doesn't want you to succeed. They're just jealous. What's really happening? They're removing your support system, so you only trust them. It doesn't always happen overnight. Sometimes, it looks like guilt tripping when you want to spend time with other people, or getting annoyed when you bring up advice from someone else, or turning you against your past, so they can become your entire future. The fewer outside voices you hear, the more powerful theirs becomes. And when that's the only voice that defines truth, you start to believe it. even if it's slowly destroying you. Gaslighting isn't just lying, it's systematically distorting someone's perception of reality until they no longer trust their own thoughts. In relationships, it sounds like, "That's not how it happened. You're being dramatic. You're remembering it wrong." In cults, gaslighting takes on godlike proportions. Take David Koresh, leader of the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas. He told followers he was a prophet chosen by God. He convinced them that surrendering their wives to him, even their teenage daughters, was divine will. And when people objected, he said they were infected with doubt, that questioning him meant questioning God. One survivor later said, "It wasn't that we stopped seeing the red flags. It's that we were taught those flags meant we were the problem." Gaslighting strips away your confidence, not all at once, but piece by piece. You start apologizing for things you never did. You doubt your memory. You second-guess your instincts. And over time, you outsource reality to them because your own mind no longer feels safe. This isn't just a cult tactic. It's the signature move of narcissists who want power, not partnership. When doubt finally starts to creep in, when something deep in your gut whispers, "This doesn't feel right," they don't give you answers. They give you phrases, scripts, mantras. You're in your ego. That's just your trauma speaking. You're not ready for the truth. Psychiatrists call these thought-terminating clichés, a term coined by Robert J. Lifton during his study of totalitarian mind control. They're short, snappy phrases designed to shut down independent thinking. They sound deep, but they're really just emotional silencers. Heaven's Gate, a cult led by Marshall Applewhite in the 1990s, used this exact strategy. He told followers the Earth was about to be recycled and that their souls could ascend to a spaceship behind a comet, but only if they abandoned their human identities. Doubt wasn't permitted. They were trained to repeat coded phrases like "the next level" and "vehicle separation" to detach from emotion. When they hesitated, they were told, "That's just the lower self resisting." Eventually, 39 people committed mass suicide together in matching outfits, believing they were transcending this planet. In 2025, the words have changed, but the effect is the same. You hear, "You're just being negative. Your energy is low. If you're triggered, it means you're not healed." These phrases are not dialogue. They're shut-down codes. They turn legitimate feelings into weakness. They replace conversation with control through language. And once that happens, the only acceptable thoughts are the ones they've already approved. Before we dive deeper, if this is starting to feel uncomfortably familiar, that's not a bad thing. It means you're waking up to something real. So if you want more deep dives like this, truth without sugarcoating, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what's coming next is what really keeps people stuck. You've probably heard it before. Why didn't they just leave? But that question misses the point. By the time someone wants to leave, they've often already given everything: their money, their time, their identity, their future. In Jonestown, members sold their homes, left their families, gave up careers, and followed Jim Jones across the world. And once they were deep in the jungle, no passport, no money, no outside communication, leaving wasn't just scary. It felt impossible. But more than that, leaving meant admitting they were wrong, that they were deceived, that all the sacrifices, the loyalty, the late-night meetings, the public declarations were built on lies. And that is devastating to the human ego. Psychologists call this the sunk cost fallacy, when you continue investing in something, not because it's working, but because you've already invested so much. It's not logic, it's emotional math. If I quit now, it means all of that pain was for nothing. So instead of cutting losses, people dig deeper. This is also what cult experts call induced dependency, a process where your sense of survival, identity, and safety becomes entangled with the system harming you. You can't imagine life without it, because they've made sure you forgot how. And it's not just cults. It happens in toxic relationships too. But we've been together for 5 years. I already changed jobs, moved cities, left friends for them. If I leave now, it means I wasted the best years of my life. So, they stay. And every time they feel the urge to leave, they double down. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I just need to work harder. Maybe this is part of the growth. The deeper the investment, the harder it is to see the trap. Because at a certain point, leaving doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like losing your entire sense of self. That's not weakness, that's conditioning. As cult recovery expert Dr. Stephen Hassan points out, people don't stay in harmful systems because they're gullible. They stay because their reality has been expertly reshaped. And unless someone helps them see it for what it is, they'll keep building their prison one brick at a time, while calling it home. Here's the terrifying part. The most dangerous people in this story, they weren't wild-eyed lunatics. They were calm, charismatic, convincing. Jim Jones spoke like a revolutionary preacher. Charles Manson talked like a philosophical poet. David Koresh quoted scripture like a humble messiah. Marshall Applewhite smiled softly while explaining how death would set people free. They weren't scary. They were magnetic. They didn't yell. They whispered. They didn't demand. They inspired. Charisma has power because it bypasses logic. It doesn't ask for permission to be trusted. It just feels good to follow. Psychologists describe this as emotional contagion, the way we unconsciously mirror the emotions and energy of compelling people. And in modern life, that same charisma shows up everywhere. In the emotional intelligence coach who says you need to cut off your family to find peace. In the influencer who says healing only happens in their $5,000 mastermind. In the partner who says, no one else will ever understand you like I do. Their words feel like medicine until they don't. Because what they're really doing is earning your trust just enough to control you quietly. Charisma is not truth. Style is not substance. And the more seductive someone's words are, the more carefully you should listen to what they're asking you to give up. When someone claims to have all the answers or insists they're the only one who can save you, that's not confidence, that's control. By now, they've love-bombed you, they've isolated you, gaslighted you, rewritten your reality, convinced you to invest everything. And here's the cruelest twist. You don't just tolerate them, you cling to them. Because they hurt you, and then comfort you. They shame you, and then tell you they forgive you. They break you, and then make you believe they're the only one who can fix you. This is trauma bonding, a term coined by psychologist Dr. Patrick Carnes to describe the addictive emotional attachment formed with an abuser. Your nervous system gets hijacked. You start associating emotional relief with the very person causing the pain. Psychologists call this pattern intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful form of behavioral conditioning. When love, approval, or peace is given randomly and unpredictably, it creates obsession. Because your brain keeps chasing the high, hoping this time will be the breakthrough. It's also tied to something called trauma repetition compulsion, a subconscious drive to recreate early emotional wounds in hopes of finally mastering them. Which is why people with unresolved trauma often mistake instability for intimacy. In toxic relationships, especially those with narcissists, this might look like crying in the bathroom one night and cuddling on the couch the next, being told you're worthless one day and the love of their life the next, wanting to leave and feeling like you'll die if you do. In cults, this is how people come to see their abuser as their savior. You don't see the manipulation because your body interprets reconnection as safety, even if it's temporary. And that's the hardest trap to escape, because it doesn't feel like fear, it feels like love. But real love doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't require suffering to prove loyalty, and it sure as hell doesn't make you afraid to leave. When pain and affection start coming from the same source, your heart may be loyal, but your brain needs to wake up. This is why so many survivors of narcissistic abuse say it felt less like a breakup and more like escaping a cult. So how do you escape a system that's been built around your vulnerabilities? How do you reclaim your thoughts after someone's convinced you that theirs are more valid than your own? Start by asking questions they don't want you to ask. Why does disagreement feel unsafe here? What would I think of this person if I just met them today, without the history? If someone else told me this story, would I call it love or control? Then watch their reaction, because real love doesn't panic when questioned. Real leaders don't crumble when challenged. And healing, true healing, never requires your silence. Break the pattern by talking. Break the loyalty by telling the truth. Break the illusion by trusting your gut, even if it's shaking. Because once you name the manipulation, once you expose the spell, it starts to lose its power. And if you're watching this because some part of you already knows, then you're not crazy, you're waking up. The question is, what will you do with that clarity? Because whether it came from a cult or a covert narcissist in your life, it's time to get your mind back.